call this hypothalamic control of the pituitary. What we'll see is that the hypothalamus controls the posterior pituitary. Let me actually add to my picture. What did we draw here? Up in this region above the dotted line here is basically the hypothalamus. I'll just put HYP. And this area right here is kind of like the infundibulum or stalk. And then this is basically pituitary down here. This area cut right there is the optic chiasm. It's where the cranial nerve 2, the optic nerves cross. Optic chiasm. This is a mammillary body. You don't have to know that, but give you some landmarks where we are. So that makes this the posterior pituitary, and that the anterior pituitary. And what I want to teach you is that there is a neural connection between the hypothalamus and the posterior pituitary. There is a neural connection between the hypothalamus, HYP for short, and posterior pituitary. I'll just put post-pit for short. Contrastly, there's a vascular connection between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary, so they differ in how they're controlled. There's a vascular connection between the hypothalamus and pits. Kind of like it's kind of what I'm emphasizing here, and I want to draw some cells from the hypothalamus, and I'm going to draw how they kind of go down to the posterior pituitary. There's one cluster of cells, and in neurophysiology they call a cluster of cells nuclei. Okay? But I'm just going to draw one cell for simplicity's sake. I'm going to draw it right around here. There's a neuron cell body that I just drew. The nucleus of cells is located superior to the optic chiasm, so it's called the supraoptic nuclei. Supraoptic nucleus. And I just drew one cell. And they synthesize, the hormone ADH. One that targets the kidneys to reabsorb water, aquaporin. So they're made in the hypothalamus, right? Now, to get down to the pituitary, the axon, which is a specialized process of the cell, will extend all the way down and kind of terminate down there. The axon terminal there. So imagine ADH, like little blue dots, I'll symbolize as blue dots. They're transported down the axon, and at the axon terminal, they're released into the bloodstream. So let's draw a capillary bed. Now, we haven't had cardio yet, but blood flow, the regular blood flow is usually arteries, capillaries, veins, and back to the heart. And capillaries are these tiny blood vessels or you can have exchange of things. They're an exchange medium because the vessel wall is so thin. So it's very important for hormones to have access to a capillary bed. They're usually drawn in your books like this. There's a little artery, so the direction of blood flow is going in. It's delivering oxygen-rich blood. That's why they use red, right? I usually draw capillary beds in this little crosshatch thing. Half of it red, half of it blue, because there is gas exchange at this capillary bed. And then to collect the blood, on the other side is a vein. So blood flows in, blood flows out. It's a stream. It's a blood stream. And so the hormone is swept up into the venous blood. So I happen to use blue, so ADH gets into the bloodstream there. So ADH is a secretion of the posterior pituitary, but it's not made there, is it? It's made in the hypothalamus. There's another nucleus you should know. It's called the paraventricular nucleus. Where's the color? Draw right around here. Paraventricular nucleus. They synthesize the hormone oxytocin. I'll teach you the function of that hormone later. It's made by this nucleus. Now, this is the hypothalamus, right? And on either side of it is the third ventricle. Well, actually, no, I misspoke. The third ventricle is in between two hypothalamus. So that's why they call this paraventricular nucleus. It's on either side of the third ventricle. Anyways, remember that name, and remember the hormone it makes, oxytocin, synthesized by the cell body of the neuron. There's an axon that will run down the infundibulum and terminate in the, posterior pituitary, just like before, and it'll be released from there. So you got ADH and oxytocin being swept away in the bloodstream there. Okay, and so the neural connection, I think you can see it, right? It's a track of axons. Put a little lasso around it. Okay, there's a name for that. It's called the hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. It's a tract of axons. These axons are transporting the hormones to be secreted in the bloodstream, as you can see as we've drawn it there. So to think about that for a minute. I mean, the idea of what we did wasn't too difficult, just cells making the hormones, and they're being secreted from the posterior pituitary. Right, just to orient you, this is posterior. Right, any questions before I talk about how the hypothalamus controls anterior pituitary? Well, it's a little more complicated because I have to teach you about portal circulation. It's a vascular connection. And just to give you a heads up for the exam, remember this. Hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. Hypothalamo-hypothalamic, it's a mouthful. What does hypophyseal refer to? The pituitary. The pituitary is also called the hypophysis. So this simply is beginning end. Yeah, but they're difficult terms to remember. So, hypothalamus controls the anterior pituitary with tropic hormones. Tropic hormones, which are secreted into a portal system, which are secreted into a portal system. Now, for you to appreciate what a portal system is, I should probably emphasize the word portal. In the general sense of the word, a portal is a shortcut, right? You open a door to another universe. It's a portal, right? So in terms of blood circulation, this is a shortcut. And let me teach you regular systemic circulation first so you can appreciate how it's a shortcut. So far you know that blood flow is arteries, capillaries, veins, and back to the heart. The heart, right? Here's a Valentine's heart. The hearts kind of look like that. Arteries are connected to the heart, and they distribute blood to the whole body. Blood flows away from the heart through arteries. So there's an artery, and maybe I'm drawing a little capillary bed. Let me get a balloon. I'll leave a little space there. And what we just said is, if you're an endocrine gland, and you want to secrete your hormone into the bloodstream, you do it at the capillary level, just like we did here. So here's an endocrine gland. You're secreting hormones into the bloodstream. Little green dots, right? And then the vein will return to the heart, basically. So if the hormone is defined as target, it's got to circulate. It's got to go back to the heart. It's even going to go to the lungs and come back. We'll even skip that part for now. And then it's got to be repumped out by the heart to get to its target. And maybe its target is somewhere else. I'll draw another offshoot here. Draw another capillary bed. And I'll draw some target cells. Distant target cells. So those hormones, they go everywhere. They're going to go back, here, they're going to go here. They're only going to trigger a specific response to these targets here. So that's a long way to go, but that's usually how it works. Right? Arteries, capillaries, veins, back to the heart. And there could be some dilution here. Okay? What a portal system is, it says, wouldn't it be better if you just go straight from this cap bed 1 to this cap bed 2? And in some cases there are exceptions, and this is one of them, where you would put a vein going straight from here to here. Bypass systemic circulation using this vein. This is called a portal vein, right? Because you're going capillary, vein, capillary. That's a portal system. Portal circulation is Cap is short for capillary, in case you weren't following me there. Cap bed 1. Portal vein, cap bed 2. That's it. And so the hormone has a shortcut. Imagine now you secrete your hormone. You just got to go from point A to point B really quickly using the portal vein. There's only 3 examples in physiology, and this is one of them. The other ones are in kidney and digestive. We'll get to those. So any questions on what a portal system is? It's a shortcut. I want to emphasize shortcut. Why? You're bypassing systemic circulation. You don't have to go through the whole thing back to the heart, back out. A shortcut because you bypass systemic circulation. You don't dilute the hormones with the entire blood volume, right? It's very effective. Throw that out there. You don't dilute hormones. Because if you got to go all the way through systemic circulation, the entire blood volume is diluting whatever you secreted. But if you got a straight shot, there's no dilution there. All right, so that's how this system will work. Okay, so let me show you how it works. So portal system, you know why it's a shortcut. And so how does it work here? Okay, there are tropic hormones that are going to be secreted by other cells. Let me draw, so I got orange, I can use that. I'll put another cell here. These neurons that secrete tropic hormones, there's a bunch of them, okay? And so let me table it out for you. But before I erase this, I'm going to ask one last time any questions on this as I erase it. So what I want to track is the hormone, the tropic hormone secreted in the hypothalamus, I'll put HYP. Tropic hormones. And then we're going to see how they use the portal system, but eventually they're going to control cells down here. Okay, and you should know what those cells are. So in the middle column, I'll put cells. They all end in trope. Trope is like a suffix that means cell. And then lastly, I'll put, when those cells are stimulated, the secretion. Okay. Now, some of them are tropic and some aren't, so we'll kind of have to parse that out. So I have 3 columns here. Now, one of the tropic hormones that will ultimately control the thyroid is Thyroxine-releasing hormone, and it's maybe So know the abbreviation as well, TRH. Okay, so that's synthesized by that orange cell that I drew, the hypothalamus. Okay, and it's going to extend its axon all the way to cap bed 1. Right around, we'll kind of cross here and go like that. So TRH, little black dots, come down here. They're going to be released into cap bed 1 at around the level of infundibulum. So we're going to have oxygen-rich blood coming in for cap bed 1. Half red, half blue because of the gas exchange. And then little TRH, my black dots, they're not going to go to systemic circulation. They're going to go to a portal vein straight to cap bed 2. I'll just draw one portal vein. I'm going to draw a rather large cap bed 2, but I won't cross hatch it. But I want to emphasize cap bed 2. Here's 1. Here's 2. It's all blue. There's no gas exchange. It all happened up here. So it's all blue. And blood will leave. Right there. But let's finish the story here. Okay, you get to cap bed 1. You take your little express highway right to cap bed 2. Now the name of the cell that is stimulated by TRH, they just call them thyrotropes. So the little black cell I drew in cap bed 2 is this. So if you're here this morning taking notes and you're not kind of engaged, you go back and look at this later, you don't know what's going on, right? You had to put it together now, so when you review your notes, you kind of remember, right? So, connection number 1, what are the black dots? TRH. Yeah. Cap bed 1, cap bed 2. What's this cell? Thyrotropes. And you know, however you're going to make the connection in your notes, do it. I got to tell you, first exam, this part I'm teaching now is the toughest part. I can't get you to get this tropic hormone data. So yeah, I'm taking my time, and hopefully it's something will click for you here. But that's just one of them. There's like a lot more. The next tropic hormone is called CRH, Corticotropin-Releasing Hormone. Now I'm just going to put RH for releasing hormone to keep life simple, or CRH for short. Okay. I'll just continue to use black dots and just kind of, I think you're getting the idea here. Black dots, CRH is going to travel down our neuron and get to cap bed 1. Okay, it's going to get into our portal system. It's going to go to cap bed 2, and there are cells called corticotropes. That will secrete, when stimulated by CRH, because it's a tropic hormone, ACTH, okay? Oh, I forgot to finish my column here. Let me backtrack a little. Thyrotropes, when stimulated, will secrete TSH. Corticotropes, when stimulated, will secrete ACTH. And I'm just using abbreviations for the anterior pituitary secretions. We wrote them out on Monday. Got them in your notes if you were taking notes. Okay, there's another tropic hormone here. Gonadotropin-releasing hormone. Again, same song and dance. Made up here. It goes to the portal system. There are cells in cap bed 2 called gonadotropes. So let me write it out here. The tropic hormone is gonadotropin-releasing hormone. That is using the portal system. And when it gets to the anterior pituitary, it will stimulate cells called gonadotropes. And then gonadotropes will in turn secrete your gonadotropins, FSH and LH. You can abbreviate gonadotropin-releasing hormone, capital G, small n, capital RH. GnRH, basically. Okay, the next one, the ones that control the release of prolactin, it has dual control. There's a prolactin releasing hormone, there's a prolactin inhibiting hormone. So I'll draw prolactin RH, prolactin IH. I is for inhibition. Well, those will either stimulate or inhibit when they use the portal system. Okay, they'll go to cap bed 1, cap bed 2. There are cells called lactotrophs. So dual control, but when the releasing hormone stimulates, well, then you'll get the release of the hormone prolactin. Prolactin, I wrote it out for you. It's abbreviated PRL, not to be confused with PRH, okay? So if I abbreviate prolactin releasing hormone, PRH, versus PIH, and it's one letter off. I don't want you to confuse it with prolactin there. There's also growth hormone. The hormones that control growth hormone are growth hormone, releasing hormone. Okay, sometimes that's abbreviated GHRH, all caps. There's a growth hormone inhibiting hormone. Or GHIH. Again, these are the ones that use the orange cell in my drawing. They use the portal system. Whether it's GHRH, GHIH, I'll draw another cell. There's cells called somatotrophs. The ant pit is about 50% somatotrophs. It's the most secreted. Somatotrophs. When GHRH stimulates it, you get the release of growth hormone, GH. So in our drawing here, just to complete it, all the hormones that are being released into the bloodstream to their various targets are on the far right column, right? Thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, ACTH, the gonadotropins, FSH, LH, prolactin, PRL, growth hormone. Okay, those are the ones that are secreted from these cells into the vein going out there. Okay, so I'm going to put a last thing here before I pull the vein. I'm going to put a PV next to that vessel. What does that stand for? Portal vein. Okay, there could be more than one of them, but I just drew one. All right, so let's look at the pictures before I blanked it out there. This is going back to the control of the posterior pituitary. Let's take inventory of everything we learned. I think I reversed the colors. Okay, that is supraoptic nuclei right above optic chiasm. And these cells will synthesize ADH. They'll kind of use the axons, okay, hypothalamic hypophyseal tract, and the hormones get swept into the bloodstream. There's oxytocin synthesized here, transported down here. So the hormones are not synthesized here in the posterior pituitary. They're just released from here into the bloodstream there. There's arteries, capillaries, veins. Here's the portal system. Took a longer to explain because there's a lot of tropic hormones. Anyways, here are the hormones that make, here are the neurons that make the tropic hormones, okay? Now these nuclei have various names. You don't have to know them, there's too many. There's too many tropic hormones. Okay, just know that these cells make tropic hormones. And they're synthesized and released in the CAP-Ed1. The book calls it primary capillary plexus. A more fancy way of saying CAP-Ed1. Anyways, portal veins transported down to CAP-Ed2. And remember, it's all balloon, right? Because the gas exchange occurred here. I'm sure there's another blood vessel supplying oxygen-rich blood, but you don't got to worry about it. Anyways, leaving CAP-Ed2 are the secretions. Okay? And in your notes, if you're taking notes, it's the column on the far right. Okay. Now, I kind of have to teach what comes after that. So a little bit about the physiology of each of these anterior pituitary hormones and kind of how they feed back. So I kind of constructed these using simple shapes, and I'll start with ADH. Erasing, Friday's going to be our first lab, and remember what I said about, I'll talk about it, but you want to come dressed for lab on days we have lab, and the proper dress is, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, closed, covering shoulders down past the knee, and a full-on shoe. And we're only working with microscope slides. It's not a wet lab, but we are using slides. But flip-flops are no good, because students drop slides on the ground and glass gets all over the place. If anyone's wearing flip-flops on lab day when we use slides, it could be a day where I ask you to leave. So on Friday, come dressed, ready for lab. I just want to mention that. All right, getting back to this, hypothalamus is making ADH, and it's going to be released from, right, this cell makes it, released from there. What you should know is it helps deal with dehydration. I'm going to write, it facilitates water reabsorption at the kidney. And I have this little plus minus thing on the figure to illustrate that things inhibit its release, things stimulate its release, like dehydration, salty blood, right, will stimulate its release. If you're adequately hydrated, that will inhibit its release. Dehydration, stimulate its release. Adequate hydration inhibits its release. You know, when you drink a bottle of water and people, the misconception is, oh, it goes right through me. Well, maybe. It's mostly you inhibit this hormone and you just allow more urine output. Okay. Just saying that makes me thirsty. I want to get a drink. The other hormone from the posterior pituitary was oxytocin, so a little more on that. We know it's released from the paraventricular nucleus, from the hypothalamus, released from the posterior pituitary. Oh, it's hard to read here, black over red. Okay, the targets are the lactiferous ducts in the breast tissue, mammary glands, and the uterus. And in both cases, it's smooth muscle of lactiferous ducts and smooth muscle of uterus. Targets smooth muscle of lactiferous ducts. Now, those ducts are responsible for milk letdown. So, when oxytocin targets the smooth muscle cells, remember a smooth muscle cell is a spindle-shaped cell with a solitary nuke right in the middle. It's kind of spindle-shaped. So when they contract, they kind of like that. But they appear smooth under the microscope. There's no striation. But anyways, it contracts in a way that opens the duct and allows milk down into the baby's mouth. Okay, so the result is called milk letdown. Not milk production, that's another hormone, milk letdown. When it targets smooth muscle of the uterus, well, that's responsible for contractions during labor. Labor contraction. So when you're pregnant, about to give birth, very painful contractions, and oxytocin helps induce labor. So if you look at the stimuli, when baby's pushing against the uterine wall, that's a stimulus for oxytocin to be released to help contract the muscle and basically help push baby out. And also the cervix. I haven't taught repro yet, but the cervix is the bottom 1/3 of the uterus, the womb. And we'll look at it. It has to dilate 10 centimeters for baby's head to fit through. And when you start to dilate, you get to 2, 3, 4, you have the labor contractions, and that's one of the first things they check in a cervical exam. If you're going to be admitted, you have to be dilated enough. Over here, suckling will stimulate the milk letdown, a suckling infant. And also they call oxytocin the intimacy hormone. Okay, so sex arousal stimulates its release. So I always jokingly say, if you have sex with your pregnant wife, you're risking a squirt in the face, because the milk let down. That's oxytocin. Okay. All right, the other ones, the tropic hormones, they use the portal system to stimulate all the troph cells, and I just kind of want to mention briefly about what they do. Okay. Okay, so what I want to write is the thyroid gland. I'm going to actually teach that on Friday. But the thyroid gland is here in your neck, and it's under TSH control. And when TSH stimulates the thyroid gland, it releases thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone basically boosts metabolism. That's what I mean when I says thermic effect. Increase your body heat, burns metabolism, burns calories basically. And more on thyroid hormone, I'll save it for Friday. Now, once you get enough levels of thyroid hormone circulating, it'll negatively feed back, kind of like turn it off. Negative feedback is you turn off the original stimulus, in this case, the release of tropic hormones. Growth hormone, I have a lot on this slide. Growth hormone is, it has direct actions and indirect actions. So let me kind of explain what I mean by that. The somatotropes, when stimulated by GHRH, will release the growth hormone, and it has what I call here anabolic effects and anti-insulin effects. Let me explain what I mean by that. Growth hormone, its effects. So when I say anabolic effect, anabolic in physiology is tissue building. The opposite word will be catabolic. Anabolic, catabolic. Tissue building, you're basically increasing your lean mass. By increasing muscle and bone and cartilage growth, not just bone growth. Muscle, cartilage, bone. You build those things. Now, if you exercise, you increase your growth hormone secretions. Younger people secrete more growth hormone than older people. Also, one thing I should mention, your major anabolic hormone is insulin. Okay. You eat a meal, it's an insulin trigger, that has anabolic effects too. So growth hormone does a lot of what insulin does, has this tissue building effect. But growth hormone actually also does the opposite of insulin. So that's why they call these anti-insulin effects. And I should mention before I move on to that, the anabolic effects are through insulin-like growth factors, IGFs. What it says here is liver. Growth hormone targets the liver, and then the liver will release IGFs to cause the increase in lean mass. Targets the liver, and the liver through insulin-like growth factors, right, have your anabolic effects. So that's why it's important to emphasize these growth factors. They're like insulin. They're not insulin. Insulin isn't doing this, but they're like it because they have a tissue building effect. But also, growth hormone directly has anti-insulin effects. Basically, you're breaking down your fuel sources so you can burn them for fuel. You need energy to build tissue, so you're going to burn fat, basically. That stands for free fatty acids. You're going to break down your fat stores, your triglycerides. Fat stores are triglycerides. It's anti-insulin because you're not building things, you're breaking them down, right? So a triglyceride, I always illustrate it as an E. A glycerol backbone and 3 fatty acids. So when you break it up into its pieces, I guess they call them free because they're not stuck to the glycerol backbone. And it's the fatty acid that can circulate in the blood and enter the muscle cell, and you can metabolize it. You know, these are just hydrocarbon chains. You can look up beta oxidation. That's how your body burns fat, because you need energy to accomplish all that tissue building. Also, you increase the glucose in the blood. So you're going to break down carb stores. Glycogenolysis, break down glycogen. Glycogen, you got some in your liver, you got some in your skeletal muscle. So you're going to increase the fatty acids, and along with that, you're going to increase blood glucose, more energy substrates. So you have more fat and more carb. You know, if you take, Kinesiology 101, the first thing they teach you, basically through the whole quarter, all you learn is how in an acute bout of exercise, you just burn fat and carb. That's it. That's all your body can metabolize for energy. So growth hormone helps with that. A couple more here. The next tropic hormone was PIH, PRH, and in terms for it's a sign for gender female, and you have to discuss the menstrual cycle, because those hormones affect this axis. I'll teach the menstrual cycle in great detail in the next unit, but for now, just know the typical menstrual cycle is about 28 days long, a month. Menses means month. And for about half of that cycle, 28-day cycle, estrogen's a little low. And for the other half, estrogen's a little higher. Okay, and a higher level of estrogen could stimulate the release of PRH, which will then release prolactin. And it targets the breast tissue. Basically, the hormone prolactin, know that its function is for milk production in the mammary gland. However, know that that's pretty much only when a female is pregnant or has given birth. But in a normal cycle, when you're not pregnant, cycle, when estrogen's a little higher, I just put a little up arrow, EST, estrogen. You'll get PRH, PRL, but no milk production. Maybe there'll be some swelling and tenderness, but no full-on milk production. I'll just put breast swelling. Now when you are pregnant and the placenta takes hold, placental hormones will really elevate estrogen levels quite a bit more compared to a normal cycle when you're not pregnant. So what I'm telling you there is you have way more estrogen, you're going to have way more PRH, PRL, it's all elevated compared to when you weren't pregnant for the full-on milk production. The breast pumps and suckling infants, if you nurse your baby, they can help let the milk down. Now for men, basically we have androgens, not estrogens, so we have no breast development. Okay, so just the default is off for men. Now I'm not going to do all of them because I remember years ago though, making these slides. I'm like making these slides to death, and I'm like, you know what? This first week, I want to leave something for you to do. I didn't do the axis for ACTH or GnRH. If you're following this, and I think many of you are, do them on your own. You're responsible for it, and state whether it's direct action or tropic, indicate negative feedback. Look it up in your book, okay? I'm like, I want you to look in your book. You're like, oh, I didn't get my books yet. I want you to get on the ball, start to think what we've been doing, and basically do it yourself. I think it's a good time for a break. One thing I want to say is today's picture day. I'm going to have you take a picture here, so go and do your hair really quick. Well, I'm just joking. I'm going to take your picture after the break. I'll see you in about 15 minutes.